The straight line belongs to men, the curved one to God. Hello everybody, thank you for watching. They say nature doesn't do anything in straight lines or in perfect right angles, and that if something is perfectly symmetrical or perfectly geometrical, then it's certainly going to be man-made. So that being said, if you are ever evaluating something that you found in nature or upon the earth, and a 3D shape or a geometrical image reveals itself to you, then you can rest assured that you are most definitely onto something. And I believe I have found such an item. I believe I have found a pyramid, just a little bit different than the ones in Egypt or in China, but a pyramid nonetheless. And I hope throughout this video to explain how it is that I found it and what I believe it will mean. This is part 2. In part 1, I summarized the history and the legend of the Shepherd's Monument, and I discussed how the Shepherd's Monument provides us with clues, leading us to the Mystery Island where the Holy Grail has been hidden, Mackinac Island, Michigan. So before watching the rest of this video, if you haven't seen part 1, I strongly recommend watching it beforehand. In this video, part 2, we will begin to find and connect the dots that make up the Michigan Pyramid, because it will be the Michigan Pyramid that directs us to the actual location of the Holy Grail. To get the first point of the Michigan Pyramid, we will need to go back and take another look at the Shepherd's Monument, as it is not done giving us clues. There is one overarching feature from the monument that is staring us right in the face, which is the actual arch surrounding the shepherds themselves. This is our first dot because on Mackinac Island there is also a very prominent and popular feature known quite simply as Arch Rock. If this seems obvious, well, that's because it is. So I will use Google Earth for our reference as we go along to mark each dot that will make up the outline of the Michigan Pyramid. To get our second dot, we will have to go 1,000 miles away to Oak Island. If you're not familiar with Oak Island, it's worth a short explanation. The Oak Island Mystery has been a popular TV series on the History Channel, airing 110 episodes over 8+ seasons thus far. The show has a broad audience and follows brothers Rick and Marty as they try to find an elusive treasure rumored to be buried on Oak Island by either Vikings or the Knights Templar. However, my money is on the Freemasons. This is because it just happens to be that Erasmus James Phillips founded the very first Masonic Lodge in Canada at Annapolis Royal in Nova Scotia during 1739. And this brings up two very interesting observations. The first being, Annapolis Royal is about 80 miles or 130 kilometers away from Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Given the enormous size of Canada, this is an unlikely coincidence. And the second observation, well, shortly after the first Masonic Lodge was founded in Canada in 1739, Admiral George Anson just happened to begin his voyage around the world in 1740. Yes, the same George Anson that had constructed the Shepherd's Monument, which, as discussed in the first video, brought us to Mackinac Island in the first place. It is because of this remarkable alignment of dates, we have to ask, would it be possible for Admiral George Anson, or one of the boats in his armada, to have stopped by Oak Island at some point during that journey? Regardless of the coincidence, let's turn our attention back to Oak Island for a moment. You see, I would submit that Oak Island is a decoy island for treasure hunters, and in actuality, it only exists to provide us with an important clue to the Michigan Pyramid. You see, the mystery of Oak Island and its lost treasure actually began in 1795 when a young boy named Daniel McGinnis found a large, strange impression on Oak Island. The curious McGinnis, along with two other boys, began to excavate what they believed to be an abandoned well. The pit they dug up would become what is now known as the Money Pit of Oak Island. Among the several items they eventually unearthed, the most infamous would become the 90-foot stone. The stone had a strange inscription on it, and while the original stone disappeared from a storefront display long ago, a replica still remains. And when I said we would have to go 1,000 miles away, I wasn't kidding. Would it be a spectacular coincidence if the distance from the most northern tip of lower Michigan to the Money Pit was exactly, and I mean exactly, 1,000 miles? And if that is spectacular on its own, then let's take a closer look at the last name of young Daniel McGinnis. You see, the bridge that joins the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan is the Mackinac Bridge, also known as the Mighty Mac, which spans about 5 miles between the cities of Mackinac and St. Ignace. The last name, McGinnis, sounds remarkably close to what you get when you merge Mackinac and St. Ignace together. Mac, Ignace, Mac, Guinness. In any case, it is the Money Pit, the old well itself, which leads us to the second dot on Mackinac Island. As it just happens, there is a large old well located on Mackinac Island, just within the walls of old Fort Mackinac. Fort Mackinac is an old British fort constructed on the island around 1780 and surrendered to the United States in 1796, 1 year after Daniel McGinnis discovered the Money Pit in 1795. The fort's well was dug to a depth of 150 feet and originally measured 12 by 12 or 144 square feet. For those of you that know, 144 is a sacred and biblical number. Feel free to investigate further, but the dimensions of the well are not a coincidence. Ye Old Well is our second dot. So it is at this point we need to take a closer look at the 90-foot stone dug up by Daniel McGinnis and his friends. There have been several attempts over the years to try and decipher the meaning of the stone's inscription, but the one that matters to us in this instance is a translation by the University of Michigan professor Ross Wilhelm. Published in a 1971 research paper, the professor and former World War II codebreaker for the U.S. military translated the 90-foot stone as at 80 Guide Millet Estuary Drain F. This is more than likely not the actual translation, but it is close enough for our purposes. You see, the key words are Millet Estuary Drain F, or as I'm inferring here, military drain field. And this takes us to another fort, an older fort on Mackinac Island. Originally constructed by the French in the late 1600s, it was an earthen military fort with an old drain field several hundred feet away in the woods. And this is our dot number 3. It was in George Edmunds' book, Anson's Gold, where Edmunds himself proposed that the letters D and M from the Shepherd's Monument were a reference to the degrees and minutes of a mystery island. This is because Admiral George Anson, the individual who had the Shepherd's Monument constructed, launched a secret expedition to recover some sort of, quote, treasure, unquote, from a mystery island in the mid-1700s. The name of the so-called expedition was the Horseshoe Expedition. And the following is a translation of a letter written in Latin by Mr. Cornelius Patrick Webb to Admiral George Anson. This letter was found in Anson's archives, and it reads as follows. I, Cornelius Patrick Webb, Captain of His Majesty's Navy, Master of the Unicorn, only survivor of the Horseshoe Expedition, depute this account to my Lord Anson, First Lord of the Admiralty, because I judgeth malady, which aileth me, will not permit to wait. It is in this letter that we learn of the Horseshoe Expedition. And again, it's not a coincidence that the oldest fort on Mackinac Island is in the shape of a horseshoe. And so now we have dot number 4. The location of our fifth and final dot is the most obscure of all, because to find it, it requires one to physically be on the island itself. On Mackinac Island at the corner of Main and Mission, or Main Mission, is one of the oldest Protestant churches in Michigan. My initial thought when observing the street sign was to play on words, and that the two words both start with the letter M, or double M, main mission, and how it could be related to the initials DM on Shepherd's Monument. It was at this point when I walked around to the east side of the church and I found a cellar door set back in the foundation wall. I was able to make out a small inscription carved into the wood casing around the door, and the initials D and M, which had been painted over at some point long before. While this is the 5th dot in the video, it was actually the first dot I had found. And now that we have all 5 dots, we can connect them one at a time to reveal a 3-dimensional pyramid, or as I have been referring to it, the Michigan Pyramid. None of this is a neat coincidence. And if you are skeptical, I can assure you there's nothing random about it.
In all our searching, the only thing we found that makes the emptiness bearable is each other.
Thank you for watching. Please watch video 3 in this series as we solve the ancient story of Atlantis.